Welcome to our second evening lecture on collaborations with Fosbury Architecture, represented by Giacomo Ardesio. Thank you very much for coming from Milan.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for coming. So you might already know Fosbury Architecture. There are architectural collective, research collective, based in Milan, consisting of 5 architects. And I think their work is quite diverse positioned. At the moment, they are focusing very much on set design, installations, exhibitioning, curating, writing, thinking, reflecting, and teaching also. Yeah. So, for instance, they have curated the last biennial in Venice, 2023. That's also where the title for tonight derives. Everyone belongs to everyone else. They also collaborated with the Chicago Biennial and Milano Triennial. No, every year, yeah. And they have published many texts and also books. You are teaching together with Arno Brandelhuber at the ETH as a scientific researcher. You're also doing several workshops with the AA, I read. So, and I'm also finding your name of your collaborative very exceptional, Fosbury. This name derives from the athlete Dick Fosbury, who first I read very often failed with his athletics, but then all of a sudden he had this genius idea of how to do the high jump from backwards. And that's also very apparently inspiring for you.
Yes.
So thank you very much for coming. And I'm also looking very much forward to discuss also your way of collaborating later.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Hi everyone, thanks again for the invitation and for your time tonight. Basically, I will do a presentation that is divided into 3 parts. The first part basically was covered more or less by the introduction, because I would speak about the beginning of our practice, then I will go through continuing and explaining basically how a research-based practice works in Italy, because we are, let's say, we can symbolize a series of practices. Then I will go through very quickly to some projects, and I will end up with the Italian pavilion, which would be a lens to see all other practices similar to ours. So if I go too long, you please let me know, and I will stop. Okay, so we are, as was introduced, we are called Fosbury Architecture, taking the name from the high jumper, and that invented this technique. The story actually told that it was not really a very good one, but then invented a new technique. So we took him as a sort of animal guide. Then we selected this name when we were very young in school at the Polytechnic of Milan in 2013, and then like with the bands, then it stays with you forever. So in every lecture I have to introduce why we are called with an English name. Basically, we decided to found a collective, an horizontal structure, because on the one hand, when we graduated, we were about to graduate, there were no really occasions to work. And also because let's say, we were confronted with the idea of the star architect, the architect hero, and we were not really believing in such a figure. And so we decided to have a horizontal structure and a collaborative platform. So in the beginning, we were 8, Marco, Federico, Giacomo, which is myself, Claudia, Alessandro, Nicola, Veronica, and Antonio. And then now some components of the collective have left, have opened their own office or started other endeavors. A project which is very interesting to introduce in here is Roark, which was a fanzine that we launched when we were still in school. That was some sort of manifesto investigating the condition of young architects in Italy. And in order, the nice story is that, not really the contents, but the fact that in order to have it distributed the largest possible, we partnered with a kebab shop close to the university. So basically it was printed in 25,000 copies every issue, because it's on the back you had the menu. So in this way we managed to be known in the Milanese scene. So with ROARC, as I was saying, we were studying the condition of young architects. As you can see from these diagrams, basically Italy is the country with the most architects, and where you build the least, actually, because there is not such a flourishing building industry as it is here in Switzerland. And so basically we used the vector of the fanzine as a way to question our own condition, which is something that was a continuous fil rouge through our practice still nowadays, and also what we did with the Italian pavilion. Also, this led some of the components of the collective to leave the country and to work abroad for other practices, and this is no mystery, and actually is something that is very honest to state in every presentation. So for several years we were spread out, and also this is actually the picture that we used for several years, and is a collage because we were never together. We never had the occasion to do a picture all together, whereas from 2020 we started to be back in Milan and work together. So this photo is too fancy, but it was asked for the Italian pavilion, so we had to pay a photographer to do it. We are not so cool, as you can see. And this is more or less how we define ourselves. We were born as a collective. We are trying to make an architecture office, yet what we do is a very broad spectrum, both because we have very diverse interests and also because we are very much using the occasions that we encounter to conduct our practice, rather than trying to fight necessarily to build something. But soon, hopefully, we will make that too. So in the early days, what we were doing as a lot of young practices were competition and mostly urban strategies. So I will not discuss that thoroughly, but basically we, let's say a common element was the fact that we were trying to do urban strategies rather than selecting buildings. So in the case of this project for the city of Porto, that at the end won a second prize, rather than reactivating the factory that was required, we basically devised a strategy to reactivate the neighborhood. Or also for our participation at the 2016 Venice Pavilion for the Venice Biennale, we devised a strategy for the city of Marghera, which is basically in the mainland of Venice, and is where all the logistic hubs or the chemical plants are sitting. And also in this case, rather than basically redeveloping it, we decided to fence it as if it was some sort of a natural disaster with a long wall that you can see in these pictures. But then the one that I would introduce now, which was the winning proposal for the Eurofund 15 in the Netherlands, which was called De Hoer in Leeuwarden, was the one that helped us to open the office, because with the money of the first prize we managed to rent our first space in Milan. So in this case we basically devised a strategy to deal with a shrinking city. Leeuwarden was losing population, contrary to what happens in most cities here in Switzerland, and basically what we proposed was to reuse unused spaces, obvious, with sharing platforms. We did not know that Airbnb can have very bad sites, let's say, a bad impact on cities, but in a shrinking city maybe it's not like in the city center of Barcelona. And so this was also a moment in which we started to reflect upon the blurring of public and the private sphere, that then unfolded into a research that then became a common thread in a lot of the setup projects that we did in the following years. Yeah, on domesticity would be therefore the next topic. Basically, with the Europan, we started to look into, let's say, interiors and the impact of sharing platform and social media on domestic interiors way before COVID. And so this project is called Environments of Resistance for Social Individuals, which is an ongoing research, let's say, but now we are trying to actually apply this research into setups because we finally have an occasion to do setups eventually. And so basically it started with a very simple assumption that was on the one hand the fact that through the social media and the fact Airbnb and so on, basically we are assisting to a flattening of taste. So basically homes resemble one another because the taste is spread with a platform that reaches basically everybody. And so that's why there is also IKEA. And there is also the anecdote that the catalog of IKEA is the most sold book in the world when it was printed even more than the Bible. And then on the other hand, basically every sphere of our life is more and more domestic. So offices, these are Google offices, but also public space and so on. So basically everything is being domesticated. And so this led us to an exercise, basically to look for an antidote to this low price and easy to assemble zeitgeist that could be IKEA. I have IKEA pieces in my house, so I'm not against that entirely. And so we were looking into this condition in between furniture space that Emilio Ambas in the New Domestic Landscape described as environments. So this is the concept that gives the name to the research. And basically define them as fixed enough to permit the reenactment of individual and social rituals, yet adaptable enough to permit private and communal events. So we started to collect a catalog of more than 400 historical examples ranging from the Renaissance to current days. And basically, yes, it was a series of references that basically stayed with us. We tried also to make it into our own designs, very simple and abstract ones, I would say. We managed even to make a prototype for an exhibition of those. But we continued with this research also in occasions such as architectural exhibitions. So this is the project that we presented for the Chicago Biennial in 2017. It was titled J'ai pris amour. And the title comes actually from let's say an inscription that you have in the reference that we use that I will introduce later on. But it was a one-to-one realization of let's say the space for a creator. What is a creator? Basically somebody that is, well, now everybody knows that. But in 2017 it was not such a discussed topic, even in architecture. So basically what we were interested into what we could consider the most successful people in the creative industry, which is definitely not architects, not designers, but creators. So people that produce contents in YouTube or TikTok and so on. And so the interesting condition that they have is that basically they work from home. So the home is the set for their self-representation. And basically we were interested in the impact of that into the domestic sphere. So we also tried to look for an archetype that could speak of that. And we took the one of the Renaissance studiolo because it was basically the same attitude, because it was a way, in this case, this is the one of Federico da Montefeltro in Urbino. And basically, in the studiolo, Federico da Montefeltro represented its own political agenda. Basically, it was a mercenary soldier that killed his relatives to become the Duke of Urbino, but in here he was presenting himself as a patron of the arts and a very wise and knowledgeable person. And so we decided to use that exactly for that reason. And what we try to do is to deconstruct the personality of a content creator exactly as it is done in the Studio of Urbino, where a series of symbols are used in order to make this story. And so basically we did that for this space that was the entrance of 51 and 40 installation, and that's how we became friends. Basically we put together 6 perspective views in order to recreate that. And in each of the views we had dispersed a lot of symbols. Now I will go more in detail. So here there is the workstation or the bedroom and cultural references, and in here you can see also the title. Basically this is our way to imagine how the room of a content creator could be transposed with an ancient technique. So this continued. Now we are trying to, we are doing, as I was saying, more and more installations. So this was a commercial occasion. We were collaborating with a textile brand, which is called Dedar, for this event that was called a Wow House. So this installation is titled Senza Fine, and basically it was reflecting on this, Senza Fine means endlessly, let's say, and it refers to this endless condition of being working and living in the same place 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so this is how basically we confronted, on the one hand, a series of working workstations with a more cozy sofa. We couldn't really, this is the workstation, so computers, everything is covered with the fabrics of the brand. And on the other hand, you had the domestic one. Unfortunately, we couldn't really put a bed because there was no space, but this opposition between these two concepts was somehow another attempt to explore and to bring such a topic into what could be, let's say, a commercial. We are very happy to do commercial projects, occasion. So to put some, let's say, research into it. As I was saying, we tend to use often, let's say, commercial or projects to do research or to materialize the research that we do. We did it again for this fashion show that we did in Milan 1 month ago, collaborating with Without Production, and we will be doing it in few days. You are all invited in Nilufar Gallery, which is a gallery that deals with archival design pieces in Milan, as well as producing new ones. So there will be reasoning on the use of metal in design, and so there will be a lot of different pieces in a set that was devised by us together with the founder Nina Yashar, and it's titled Silver Linings, just because everything will be done in metal. So another part of our installation, our production is ephemeral installations. This is what we have been contacted as for in a lot of occasions for museums and other cultural institutions. So this one, for instance, is a very early one. It was called Rocco because in Italian the name of a piece of the drum of a column is called rocchio, so it was an assonance simply. But the interesting part is to do something monumental or resembling a monument with a material that was neither heavy as stone and neither as precious as stone. So basically we did with dalmatiner, which is the material that you use normally to insulate the facades. So we managed to collaborate with Caparol, and we convinced them to carve for us this structure that then became a temporary pavilion and an exhibition spot in the garden of the Triennale of Milan. Or speaking in the same attitude, we devised for the Ducato Prize in Piacenza a set. Basically, we are here in a Baroque church in Piacenza, and we were to devise with very few means a space where to exhibit the 10 artworks realized by emerging architects for the Ducato Prize. And basically we were trying to devise a sort of white box, what every gallerist might want to have. And in this case we did it just with one partner and two products. So on the one hand, we use lightweight cellular concretes in order to make the structure, the plinths for the art pieces or the walls. And then we used on the other end, we wrap the columns, let's say, with the material that normally you use to wrap the pieces of concrete. Basically, this was also a way to do an actually ephemeral installation, because at the end of the installation, okay, we didn't actually use that plastic to wrap the same pieces as they arrived, but at least the pieces were returned to the factory, and basically there was completely no waste. This is something that we were reflecting upon while doing the Italian pavilion, actually, because everybody speaks about reuse in architecture, but you never speak about the impact of temporary installations like the design fairs or, let's say, exhibitions in general. Or another one was a project which is titled Cubo, that was a temporary stage for this music festival in Syracuse. Basically, it was the stage for the after party, running from from midnight to 6 in the morning, I think. So that's why we start with the day image. And so basically in this case we used once again very simple materials, because there were no funds to do this stage, but also because we like to explore and test materials per se. So we used the material that you normally put on top of greenhouses, so this silver reflecting material. And the reason is because we had to protect from the sun of Sicily in summer the DJ that was using vinyls. So we were using this material to protect the DJ. And on the other hand, we borrowed scaffolding because it's cheap, easy to assemble, and modular. And so basically, the stage consisted into this cube of fabric that was lifting as the concert was progressing. It's not a brand new idea, you know, that Assemble did it, but it was interesting because it was accompanied with a changing performance through the night. And so basically this was a collaboration that was continued in time, and actually the stage was reused in at least the following iteration of the festival the year after. Then another one, titled Character, we did it in Vienna. It was an exhibition that we curated as well as realizing the setup for it, and we used this recycled fur. We collaborated with this very interesting initiative in Milan, which is called Meta. Basically Meta, as in Milan, you have a lot of weeks. There is the design week, the fashion week, twice a year. The city is entirely an event, so there is a lot of leftovers. And so we often partner with them in order to take these materials that are taken by them, cleaned, and put once again on the market. And so in this case, what we took is this material that was coming from a Prada fashion show that was basically fake fur. And basically the substructure was not as fancy as the finishing. We made it ourselves with their help. But basically this was the final outcome of it. We are in Vienna, so we were clearly quoting Adolf Loos, the room for his wife, but we did it with pink fur because we are more punk. And these were where we presented our research on the environments. mostly the videos that we had produced in different occasions. But what was interesting is also to immerse some abstractions of those environments into this continuous surface. So basically we included a chaise longue, a conversation pit, or an inclined bed that was a quote to Ugo La Pietra's Inclined Planes. This one instead was produced with more than 2,000 euros. It was an installation for another fashion brand, which is called MSGM, in the occasion of the Milan Fashion Week. In this case, we were asked by the designer, Massimo Giorgetti, to devise basically an alternative for to a fashion show, because they said that it was tired for that season to do fashion shows. And so it was an installation. And basically we worked together with him, deconstructing on the one hand MSGM visual imagery, and also working with the site, because the site is their headquarters in Milan, where there is a site-specific installation by even Franco Mattez, which is this yellow element that you can see. And so basically on the exterior we used this very nice mesh, which is normally used to protect greenhouses from, wait, I don't have the English word for it, when the ice comes down from the sky. What is that? Not snow, it's hail. Yes, exactly. So that's why it's color-coded in yellow. So there are different color codes from this producer. And so it was a quote for the color that they often use in their fashion. But the interesting thing is that often using industrial materials in installation is very useful, because they are very cheap, because they are not made to be designy, but rather for industrial purpose. So large surfaces and very cheap. Whereas on the interior, we did basically we did an installation that was referring to the seaside in Emilia-Romagna, the coast, because Massimo Giorgetti is from Rimini, and it's also clearly a quotation of Yves Klein, naturally. And basically, it's very simple and one-liner, I would say. We were making some sort of counterpart in the space of the installation above, which is the site-specific one that I was referring to. And this is another image of it. And very last, this is another installation that we did for Officine Saffi, which is a cultural institution that collaborates with artists to work with ceramics. So in this case, we were asked to work together with them in the curation of this exhibition that was inviting 4 young artists that never used clay in their practice. So that's why it was called Supponiamo un amore, let's suppose a love. And so you can see this image in here. Basically, you barely see the installation, and that's because, I mean, we had a large space and pieces that we did not know the scale of in the very beginning of the process. And so we basically devised this wall that is 160, so right at the height of the viewer, let's say, basically concealing the exhibition, because on the one hand we wanted to have a very intimate and let's say one-to-one experience to the art pieces, but then on the other hand we wanted to have let's say a general view on in which you could really see the counterposition of the different pieces. And so that's why we use this seat that is borrowed from the field of tennis. It's the referee seat. And basically it was this privileged viewpoint from which you had actually the view that you saw in the first slide. And we also use the metaphor of the labyrinth, because it's a recurring theme for us, but also because it was speaking about the experience of these artists that were learning how to use clay. And this is the labyrinth that we actually did for the Terraforma Festival, a labyrinth in a villa close to Milan, that was used as a stage for music festivals once again. I will be very quick now because otherwise I will not have the time to explain also the Italian pavilion, which is what gives the name to the lecture of today. Everyone belongs to everyone else. So we try to work also with existing, first of all observing it. So In Computo, The Birth of a Style is a publication that basically crowned 10 years of research of the collective Alterazioni video. We helped them to devise this publication that was looking at the phenomenon of unfinished public buildings in Italy. Basically, it is a phenomenon that is very much discussed in the public opinion, on media in Italy, even if the first figure that discussed that before Alterazioni video was the Gabibbo, that was this character of the Italian television that basically was going around the cities to look for unfinished public buildings or infrastructures. You can see here an overview. So some of them you might have seen them also in movies, or if you have seen Suburra, this Netflix series. Basically they meet in here, which is the unfinished, an unfinished sport facility in Rome that now they say that they will complete for the Jubileum this year. And basically it started also as a catalog that then became eventually a book publication that, under the claim that the unfinished in Computo is the most important architectural style after World War II, became a bestseller, and actually we are trying to print it once again this year. Let's see if we are successful. Also, we support initiatives. I know that you have been speaking with Olaf 1 year ago, so I will not spend too much time on House Europe, but Fosbury Architecture is trying its best to collect his signatures in Italy for this initiative that aims at changing the European legislation, making renovation the best option. Actually, our dream is to make renovations. We are trying to do some. We are trying to do a cultural center in a town close to Milan, or the activation of a former industrial building that will become an educational institution in Milan. I'm speaking in this way because I could not really present the projects because I have an NDA, but then I can speak about the Scuola Piccola Zattere, which is also an unfinished project that we are doing in Venice. You are all invited to see the inauguration. I will speak about that later on. It is a non-profit space for education and research in the expanded field of contemporary arts. So basically not just artists, but also spatial practitioners and architects. And the name Scuola Piccola is a reference to which literally translates into small schools, but to traditional model of civic organization in Venice. Basically, it was, we could translate them in English as guilds, where craftsmen of different arts were meeting together. So basically, this school aims to do the same, and as a lot of cultural institutions in Venice just come there and are active just during the moments in which all tourists are there, so where the Biennale is happening. And you have a lot of foundation with whom we have collaborated, Palazzo Grassi, there is Fondazione Prada and so on, but the goal of the Scuola Piccola is to basically collect, on the one hand, locals, because there are a lot of universities in Venice, but you finish your studies and then what do you really do? So to help them to structure the beginning of their careers, and on the other to bring people from abroad in residency in Venice to collaborate together with this community. So this is what's happening inside. And what we are doing for them is working on redefinition of the interior master plan of the museum that is supposed to be an extension of the public space. The building sits on the Fondamenta delle Zattere, which is a very large space facing the Giudecca. you might have been there, is where the Church of the Salute is, and if you continue along the Giudecca, you will encounter this museum. And so we are working with them in order to make this space, this even more public. Basically, on the one hand, borrowing a little bit the language of public spaces. So together with the graphic designers that did the image, we are using posters everywhere, because these are basically the ones that you will see through the public space in Venice. But also, on the other hand, we worked on a series of furnitures which were inspired once again by the identity of the institution that was designed by our dear friends Giga Design Studio. And basically, it's a series of modules that could be recombined in order to make either tribune or stages and so on. The stools serves for that, but also the tables is made in the modules so that you can really do larger tables and so on. That's why there are a lot of holes into it. And also the other concept was to use the least material. So basically, they are just simple planks of wood. That are used in order to make all the modules. But you are all invited for the Venice Biennale to see what we will do in the restaurant. That will be the most vibrant space of the compound, and also in the courtyard. That is basically right behind that water door. So, and now I will go into the narration of our largest endeavor so far, which was the curation of the Italian pavilion at the last Venice Architecture Biennial, which was also the celebration of our 10th anniversary. So basically it was titled Spaziale because it was an attempt to look at an expanded idea of architecture, so looking at space rather than the built artifact as the object, the field of operation of architects. And so basically we developed this project as a vector to realize projects in architecture. So it was a way to let's say give an occasion of work for the participants. Basically we invited people that were in our age group. So if you cannot really invite them to an exhibition where you cannot really give a very large budget to work with without giving them a payback. We know that very well because we have invited to other exhibitions, so we try to subvert a little bit that way in order not to just, let's say, eat their work, but rather to do a collaborative project itself. And also it was meant to be a generational photograph of Italian practitioners. So basically it was a way also to, let's say, use wisely the budget. Actually, the Italian pavilion is funded by Italian taxpayers, so it is very important how you use the budget. So if you as a curator celebrate yourself, you're not doing the right thing. And so in this case, we decided to promote the activation of projects on the Italian territory. So not in Venice, somewhere else. I will show you where. And also another element that we were trying to question is the time span of the Italian pavilion. Because normally you do a project that is done for 6 months, it's meant to be there, be seen, and then it disappears. Whereas in this case we try to activate processes that were continuing after. And in some cases some projects actually succeeded in doing that. But a reasoning of on the, let's say, the impact of the curation of a pavilion was very relevant to us, both in terms of resources, how you make things, how you use the money, and also what does it mean to collaborate with a cultural institution. Also, we couldn't really make it wrong from all this point of view, because otherwise they would have said that our generation is a failed one. So we had the responsibility towards all the participants and people in our age group. So basically now I will explain a little bit the rules of the curation, how it was made. Also, and then I will stop with these textual slides to move more with images. Basically, we decided to invite 9 spatial practices to develop these site-specific projects. And basically, we call them spatial practices because we were interested in showing a different idea of the architect. So basically, we selected them according to these parameters: the research that they carry out, the design attitude that they express in their everyday practice, and also the territories where they operate. Because then we were sending them all around Italy. And so these are the 9 firms that we invited. And what is interesting is that none of them fits perfectly in the idea of the architectural studio, but they rather situate on the perimeter what is considered to be architecture. They call themselves either collective or ateliers or research studios, agencies, but not architecture office. Also, what is interesting is that their practice spans from do-it-yourself to contemporary arts and so on. So it was really the outcast of what could be considered, let's say, architecture in Italy. And this was also to make a point towards Italian debate. And also, we selected them under 40 in order to select a precise generation. And basically, the average age was around 33 years old, which made it the youngest Italian pavilion ever made. We were also the youngest curator ever invited to curate such a thing. And this is something that is also important for a country like Italy. So we paired them with 9 advisors, which were credible professionals coming from other disciplines, in order to make the project credible transdisciplinary outcomes. And so the advisors were either performers, artists, food or artificially intelligent experts, writers, and so on. And we invited them to work in each group in different stations, which were sites representative of condition of fragility or transformation of the country. And in here you have the list. In order to ground every project into the territory, we also, already in the very beginning, when we were making the proposal to the Ministry of Culture, we identified incubators, which were local art actors which could collaborate with the practitioner, but also to take care of the outcomes of this process afterwards. And so you had either cultural festivals, museums, cultural associations, and so on. And so this produced this very widespread geography of a project that dealt with a different topic. So we proposed to each practitioner to deal with one project. So to speak about the coexistence with the disaster, we invited Post-Disaster Rooftop to collaborate with Silvia Calderoni and Ilenia Caleo, which are performers and also political activists in the field of performance. So the site would be Taranto. This is an image of an aerial view of the old city of Taranto, and the story of Taranto is rather important. A tragic one, because there is the presence of the Ilva, which is this plant that is producing steel. It's the largest in Europe, but in here there is a very controversial situation, because on the one hand, people work there, basically it gives work to a lot of citizens of the city, but on the other hand, it's causing cancer for them. So the city center of the old town of Taranto has been abandoned, and basically there is no one that wants to live so close to the factory that is actually overlooking the island, which is the old city of Taranto. So what Post-Disaster Rooftop does is organizing a festival on the rooftops, reclaiming this space as a public space for the citizens that are left there. So this, basically this festival that is yearly organized, I mean, is about to happen also this year, started with let's say a moment of acknowledging the body with Tai Chi classes and so on. And it was made, as you can see, with very minimal architectural infrastructure or function, basically just setting the stage. It was called Out of the Ruin that year and was exploring the importance of the body. So here is Silvia, the performer, and basically Silvia produced what was the stage for all the activities that took place in there in the 3-4 days of the event. In here you can see her performing. But what was interesting is, on the one hand, the reflection on the impact of the pollution, but also how the threshold between performance and citizens was moved by her acting into the city. So here, all these videos were taken by Alterazioni Video, which is this collective of artists with whom we often collaborate. And basically then they were all on show in the Italian pavilion. So the most important moment though was the assembly that took place at the end of the event, which was investigating the topic of the disaster, because we tend to think that the disaster is always about to happen. And before it was 2000, then it have been pushed to 2050, then now it's to 2100. But in a city like Taranto, where the disasters have already occurred, what can we really do? Because they really have to coexist with the disaster. So this was an important moment also to gather politicians and people from all over Europe to reflect on that topic. And it was very important for us to take this type of activity within the realm of the Italian pavilion and the framework of an institution like the one of the Italian pavilion. The second topic was the reconciliation with the environment. In this case, BB, a practice formed by Bava and Ballabio, collaborated with Terraforma Festival, reflecting on a specific site that they actually proposed, which is the Yeranto Bay. It is called the Land of Sirens because this inlet in the Sorrentine Peninsula is where supposedly Ulysses met with the sirens, according to myth. But also, it is a place with a very important industrial past, because this have been a place for extraction. So now you will see, as we move out, we zoom out, this large scar in the landscape that was produced by the extraction of calcium. Now you can see it in here. What is the scale of this scar? And this was used in the Ital Cider of Bagnoli, that now is an unused, basically an industrial archaeology that is supposedly one of the areas of redevelopment of the city of Naples. But what was interesting is also that after the quarry closed in 1985, this area was protected by the FAI, the Fondo Ambiente Italiano, which actually tried to renaturalize the space. So in order to, on the one hand, speak about what does it mean to reconcile with the landscape, especially in such a fragile environment, this required to make something that was temporary and not disrupting the process of renaturalization. And so, collaborating with the music festival, they devised a sound performance. And they did it with Walter Marioli, which is a musician, composer and sound archaeologist, that work, on the one hand, looking into how ancient Romans were making music and also using natural instruments, natural elements to make sound. So here are some extracts of the rehearsal of his Posidonia Orchestra. And this is the stage that was designed by the architects. But the interesting part, I can go back if you have to take the picture. The interesting part is also that we were collaborating with the Madre, the Contemporary Art Museum in Naples, and basically this process became the inception, the beginning of their education program with children. And so once again, it was a way to bring in and continue the project afterwards. Then, to speak about multicultural coexistence, we decided to work in Trieste. Trieste sits on the border between Italy and Slovenia and has been for several years, several centuries, the place of encounter of Italian, German, and Slavic culture. But it is also a very critical point in the Italian geography because it is the the arrival point of the Balkan route of migrants. So people that use the Balkan routes arrive in Italy, crossing the border in there. And it was very important for us to use this occasion also to subvert the let's say, what comes in the news, so that everybody, all the migrants, comes just from Libya on the boats. They come also from the other border of Italy, and is a story that is rather untold. And so, basically, also in this case, the practitioners, which were Giuditta Vendrame and Anna Shametai, which is a filmmaker, worked together to speak and deconstruct the character of this area and its multiple layers. It will be, once again, by using sound, but also by reclaiming a space. This was the Kleine Berlin, which was a bunker that was built in World War II and remained unused. So basically, what and also it's interesting because the only association that was having access of these tunnels is an association of speleologists, because we are in the Carso area where there is a lot of infiltration of water in the stone. So basically you have stone formation which are unprecedented, and also there is a very peculiar species of insect that lives in there, and so that's why it was a very nice place to reclaim. And actually what the project did was to reopen it to the public. So basically they used the money that we gave them for the budget in order to make the infrastructure, in the lighting, and also the passages in order for people not to slipper on the wet floor, and also devising this very nice installation. And now they are working on progressing on this project in other cultural events, such as the Gorizia Capital of Culture or the Biennial of Malta. But what is very interesting is that the sound installation in here that they did was always featuring bilingual short songs that were speaking about travel or resistance, let's say. Also including lullabies, and I will show a little bit, it will be the only thing that I will show about the set of the Italian pavilion, that were recorded with migrants in the station of Trieste. So another topic that I will deal with now is the one of our Finnish public buildings. We use the Italian pavilion as a way to speak about a topic that is very dear to us, as you might have understood. And so in this case we invited HPO, a collective, to work together with a writer. The writer is Claudia Durastanti, because they basically we asked them to work on this neglected facility in a very small town close to L'Aquila. It is called Ripa Teatina. It has 400 inhabitants, and basically it is known to be the place where the parents of the famous boxer Rocky Marciano was born. So not Rocky Marciano, but the parents. And so they have the Rocky Marciano Festival in summer. So it is a facility that was built initially as a hospital, then they tried to convert it into an elderly home, but then it remained unfinished. So basically it was initiated in 1973, so it were 50 years that it was left unfinished. And so what the project consisted in was twofolded. On the one hand, there was a work of restituting this space to the citizens of Ripatiatina, just because also it was built with public money once again, and so it had to be restituted to the collectivity. And on the other, a work on resignifying the space. So basically, the first action was to cut the vegetation all around and making it seenable, because in Italy these buildings are called eco-monsters. It's something that you are ashamed of if you are a citizen of a place with an eco-monster. So, and the other thing was to devise a place where the citizens of Ripatiatina could actually do cultural programs inside. On the other, Claudia Durasanti worked on resignifying the space and basically making it a destination for tourists. If you go on Google Earth and you digit Uccellaccio Park, you will find it. Basically, it was a way also to make it really a place to go. And that is why we collaborated with the Maxi L'Aquila in order to devise a cultural program in there through Rue de Summer. And what was also very nice was the fact that it collected the sympathy of all the locals. So basically in here you can see the mayors of Ripatiatina and all the surrounding municipalities that came to rediscover this space. So basically a place that was neglected became once again a place that was part of the community. So this was a little snippet of the inaugural day of the Parco dell'Uccellaccio. Then I will continue very quickly because our time is over. So we spoke about social inclusion. Parasite, together with the fashion brand Brain Dead, they work in Marghera, and basically they devised a facility for younger people to learn how to climb on buildings, basically. So this is a school of climbing that is on this church, the Cristo Laboratore. It was initiated by the priest to fight against, let's say, the fragmentation of the social fabric in there. And so basically what we did with the public money was just to restore and enhance a facility that was already in place. But also was funny because before the beginning of the Italian pavilion, this was used by Arrampilandia, so basically 1,000 local children used it to climb. And so making it once again, speaking once again about public space. So for the food transition, we were in Sardinia with Lemonot, with Roberto Flore, which is basically the director of the food lab in Copenhagen. And so in here they were speaking about the production of the bottarga that you probably have eaten, but it looks like this before it's cut and put on pasta. And also we were interested about on the fragile environment of the lagoon of Cabras, where bottarga is produced, because basically it is the habitat where these fishes, I don't remember the name of them in English, but they go there to reproduce. So basically the bottarga is produced by the ovary sac of those fishes and then is dried and cut then. And so basically what they did was a project that was aimed at basically restoring some facilities in the area, the Pischeria Mar e Pontis, I read in my notes, which is this little church. They devised an installation that was made with the material that constitutes the distinctive element of the lagoon of Cabras, which is salt, because the degree of salinity is the important ratio for make these fishes reproduce. And basically these cones of salt were sold online in order to finance the restoration of the church. And they were produced also with the class of their students at the Royal College of Arts. I will continue very quickly, and then I will go to speak about Ossidiana. So basically, to speak about the regeneration of peripheries, we had together working Studio Ossidiana, practice based in the Netherlands, and Adelita Ousnibey, which is an artist that is working a lot with communities as well as with children's, and we asked them to work in probably one of the most complex sites of our geography, which is Librino, which is basically a town close to Catania with 800,000 inhabitants, basically as large as a lot of province capital in Italy, but is a neighborhood of Catania. It was built on a master plan of Kenzo Tanghe that remained partially incomplete. And basically, after 50 years of degradation, because what happens is that they did the buildings, they didn't do the public space. So, and this was one of the reasons why it didn't took really off as a directional center as they imagined it. So the installation was called the Casa Tappeto, the curtain house, was basically imagined on a very simple principle. The principle is to devise a tent that could serve as a pavilion for the children to play, but also as a way to shelter from the hot sun in summer, because these children have to play outside in summer, but there is no trees because nobody planted the trees, because then you have to maintain the trees and nobody does maintenance. And so basically you have those public spaces, which is just either concrete or concrete blocks, where it's impossible to stay outside. And Adelita worked together with them to produce basically a game that could be stitched on top of the curtains and used as a base for them to play. So she's actually continuing with her workshop. We are working to make this installation permanent. I forgot to say that we work with a local association, which is called Talitacum, that offers the after school to the children of Librino that otherwise would not know where to go. So this is the situation here. Basically, that building that you can see up there, it is called the Concrete Tower, I think, and it was where basically the distribution of drugs happened in Librino. Now it's just moved. It didn't really work, but it was the hub of distribution of drugs in eastern Sicily. So it was a very difficult site, and that's why it was very important to show in the occasion, in an institutional occasion like the Italian Pavilion, the work that Talitacum does. So beyond that, beyond the work that they do, which is very important, I mean, this work continued, and Adelita also was just prized with a very important recognition from a museum in Milan because of the work that she did in there. Then I have another couple of projects that I will not go in detail with because we have finished the time. I will just scroll the work that Bruno Zamboli did with the Orizzontale, and also the one that Abnormal Captcha did with Emilio Vavarella in Prato, to end up with an image of the Italian Pavilion. So basically what all the critics, also the one that were very much against our operation, recognizes that at least we left the first room empty because the Italian Pavilion is too big, and then there is a lot of resources that go into the making the installation, and so consuming a lot of resources. So we left the first one empty with just this video that was introducing the rules of the games, and then the only thing that we did was to ask everybody to transpose their work in a very simple manner. Leaving the first room empty was also a symbol to show how the money was used outside of the perimeter of the pavilion, basically expanding its impact beyond. I will finish actually with this anecdote. So basically this was the most complicated part of the installation. This is how Giuditta and Anna represented the project of Trieste. It was, I said, a sound installation, so it was a polyphonic installation, but this instrument that you can see in here that we had to import from China actually is actually a weapon. It is a weapon that is used against migrants to dissuade them to cross the boundaries. So you can mount it on an helicopter, or you can use it on the border, and is a way to make them fall because the sound is too strong. This was manumitted to play this Afghani lullaby, and for us it was really important to have such a piece within our pavilion in a moment in which there was a lot of controversy on the situation of migrants in Italy. And on this I will end, and I will close with this image. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this really nice presentation. Do you have questions or comments? I maybe have one. You described very shortly like the situation for architects in Italy, and also which you somehow also reflected in one of your publications. And then also you mentioned like also in this biennial that you worked with explicitly your generation of architects. How would you describe your generation of architects in Italy right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the reason why we selected a specific group of practitioners was just because we wanted to prove a point. We like to do architecture very much. We are trying to do that, so we didn't want to say architecture should be this other thing. But what we wanted to say and to state also is that architects, with their knowledge, with their degree, can also do other things. So not necessarily you have to become somebody that make buildings, because maybe buildings sometimes are just using a lot of resources and doesn't really have an impact. So sometimes the built artifact is not the right answer. And so it was, again, a way to reflect on that. And so, finally, it was also a bit of hope for people that were studying in school, showing that architects can also do other things, and it's okay. If you will not ever build, it's not a problem, really. So it was a way for us to try to prove all these points in a context like the Italian one, in which on the one hand, nobody has the capacity to reach the market, and on the other hand, if you don't build, you are not acknowledged as an architect per se. So this was the reasons why this is how we try to represent our generation and the condition of Italian architects.
And how was the feedback from the Italian cultural, from the institutions or from your generation?
Oh, let's say that when we started, I mean, they also knew that. So we were appointed by the Ministry of Culture. So we had to do an invited competition. Now it's an open competition, but at our time it was an invited competition with our 9 other practitioners. And so they knew what our project was about. I think that they were happy. They wanted to try a different type of discourse. And so they were very supportive. Also, we changed government in between, and we didn't have, we had support from both left and right, because it was before Franceschini and then San Giuliano. And I must say that they were happy also with the return. What was more, let's say, touching was the fact that as we were going into places that normally are not touched by Italian culture, like, I don't know, Ripa Teatina or a forgotten part of Mestre, these news were popping out in local press. So this was very nice. I mean, it was, from that point of view, very successful. On the other hand, clearly, the moment in which the critique that we got is that this is not architecture. And I mean, it was not stated too much or too drastically, just Manuel Orazzi did it on, and we liked to have a counterpart. We had an occasion to discuss with him several times, but as I said before, we were not trying to defend a point. So what is architecture, what is not architecture? What we wanted to say is just, this is also architecture. So it's to add on a narrative, not just to override the one that we are used to have. So we had criticism. Also in people in our age, for instance, because there are a lot of people that say, okay, we need to be architects, we have to build, but we all witnessed that as Italian young practitioners. You then spend a lot of time in doing paper architecture, drawings. We all have done that. You've seen that we have done that in our very beginning, but then dealing with the reality is another thing. So if doing other things is a vessel to then reach an architecture that can make an impact, then why not to open up what architecture means, also for them.
Was it for you like a conscious decision as a group of people to stop doing paper architecture, or did you go on with that?
No, we are not doing drawings anymore because doing those drawings, line drawings, takes a lot of time. So
I mean, not specifically line drawing, but you know.
no, but the first point, the project that you might remember, which was called Potlatch, was exactly about that. So there was in fashion these line drawings, no, and everybody was asking the interns to do line drawings. But then you had interns that were like CAD monkeys all day long. And so we did our project Potlatch. It was this sort of archive where you could share your redrawings. So basically, if you were an intern, at least you could download the pieces already done by somebody else.
But I rather meant, like, was it a kind of a conscious decision? Did you stop doing competitions? Or did you,
we did stop doing competitions because in Italy, how to say, it's not like in here. If you win a competition, then you realize a competition. If you win a competition, maybe it stops, or maybe then they change the municipality, and then the objectives are different, and maybe it takes 20 years, and so it's easier to try to do it from other angles, I would say. Also, it's very honest to admit that we also had different jobs through this year. So it's during the Italian pavilion, we basically reassembled entirely 100% working on Fosbury. So that's why there are a lot of bits and pieces. But this was also our strength because we could put together different type of knowledges, because somebody have done a book, somebody have done installations, working with institutions, or making actual architecture. And so this is our strength, actually. That's how an horizontal structure or a collective, especially if you have a very diverse type of expertise, it is a more resilient type of structure rather than a very vertical one. Because a very vertical one, then the moment in which you have a crisis, then it means that you have to fire everybody, as it happens in Italy, everywhere in Europe, where you don't have protected labor for architects. And so in this way you can absorb better the discrepancies of the market. But why not? We will try again to do competitions. Well, actually we did some invited ones maybe, but we did not win yet. If it happens, I'll let you know.
And you're a collective of 5 people.
Yes.
Same age, probably?
Yeah, more or less same age, because we studied together. We did we're not in the same class, or basically we shared class in couples, overlapping in university. So when we started, somebody was still studying, somebody was about to graduate. So it is a little bit of a nice story. And several times we decided, okay, but this cannot exist. We cannot have one job and doing that overnight. So we tried to kill Fosbury, but we were always coming back together. And then now we are trying to make it work properly. So it is a story of now, well, now it will be 12 years. So.
And it's probably very much on eye level, like there's no person who is deciding what to do, how to do it, and why to do it, or?
Well, we normally, when we have to, normally we collaborate on projects in subgroups of 2-3 people. So this is also very useful because we can take on a lot of things at a time. And we restructure ourselves also according to our own skill set, no? Somebody that, if there is something more architectural and technical, you will have somebody. Then if it's a publication or a research, it will be somebody else's. And then we mix up all the time in different ways. Now we have a stable collaborator, also Luca. We have had other ones in the past that then decided to go for more solid firms, and it makes sense because collaborating with a younger practice makes sense at the beginning, at the inception of a career, not really later on when you have learned everything that you have to learn. We hope that Luca stays with us forever, and then because he's really good. But let's say that we aim also to eventually, why not, to expand this horizontal platform. We don't mind to collaborate with other collectives or groups. We are trying to establish those, maybe production houses for either exhibitions or fashion, or also integrated design firms, which is in Italy are rather diffused, basically that could integrate the service of an engineer and of an architect for larger projects. So that's a way in which we can approach larger commissions. So collaboration and horizontality kind of works as a strategy in this world, which is so unpredictable, I would say. So I don't know now with the tariffs of Donald Trump what's going to happen, but maybe we will be all bankrupt, and then we have to invent new ways of working, no? And so in a horizontal and a resilient structure, there is more room to find a solution, I would say.
So you are a collective, but you are also a collector. So you collected a lot of materials, so this research on these interior spaces, also the ruins, even this pavilion if you want. But actually first, so are you trying also to put a kind of red line through this? Are you taking position? Is the fact of collecting already a position? So are you giving us a kind of perspective, point of view, or do you let this open? What is your attitude?
I mean, we are a multiplicity of minds, so there is never, I mean, we do, basically what we always try to do since the very beginning is to construct a series of references, I would say. So that's how there is this idea of collecting. For these interiors, for instance, it was personal interest, but also curating a way, the criteria to select this collection. And then the act of collecting became also something that eventually informed our way of producing architecture. Because, yeah, we didn't have an occasion yet to make a house, or a house with a budget that could produce those kind of furnitures, but I'm sure that if we had an occasion, probably we would try to experiment those intuitions. And so this is something that serves, this is research that serves to orient the practice, I would say, and to devise a common ground among all of us. In the case of the unfinished public buildings, once again, it is a visual imagery, I would say, so the seduction for those neglected spaces. But it was also inserted into a project that was initiated by this collective of artists with whom we have collaborated, which is called Alterazioni Video. And once again, the paradox of what to do with unfinished public buildings, because normally they are too expensive to be finished and to demolish. And normally they are in places where there are not the money to do such a thing. So already the fact to reflect on those topics somehow oriented our practice towards this sort of very ironic pragmatism that somehow you could see through also in my speech, because I don't want to take myself and my practice too seriously, but in the work that we do, which tends to be never cynical, honest, and a little bit ironic, I would say.
Okay, maybe that's a good. Oh, yeah.
You said you work among Fraunhofer?
Yes.
Yes. he often uses architecture as a kind of economic and legal, I don't know, kind of protest, platform for protest. You see yourself, your collective, as a tradition of this kind of protest?
Well, we didn't have so much the occasion to make a point of Italian laws, but let's say that already to get the permission to deal with this unfinished public building that then was approved by the health department of the region Abruzzo was already quite something. To have the permission, to have the comodato d'uso, I don't know to translate it, of a building that could be dangerous was really quite something. And then also working with the rules and regulation of La Biennale and how you could use funds and so on was, in a way, an attempt to do the same thing within the framework in which we were moving. Also, we are trying to do that with buildings too, but let's see how that unfolds. But in a different way. It was more because in Italy there is not, I mean, in Switzerland you have a lot of policies like the temporary occupation of spaces or the fact that you build provisoriums, then maybe it leads to other problems eventually that I'm sure that you can take care of very well because everything is very well executed all the time. But in our case, there is not a way in which you could, I mean, all the things that we have done in here could not properly happen in a public space. So there was always a way to rescue the public because otherwise it was problematic. So the stage for the children in the, was done temporarily in the public space, but then brought into a private one because otherwise it could be problematic and so on. So we are trying to work with that with buildings too, because temporary occupation often is the solution rather than making heavy infrastructures, and also saves a lot of money. And we are trying to implement that in projects that we are currently doing.
Any more questions? So, thank you.
Thank you all.